Hello everyone, welcome to the today's webinar which is based on security, compliance and identity. My name is Dipanshu Mittal. I am certified trainer of Microsoft from GTechLearn, which is gold partner of Microsoft. Today we will study security, compliance and identity. So before starting, please tell me that my screen is visible to all of you. Please put it in on chat box. Thank you for confirming. So this is our agenda of today's webinar, where we will study zero trust methodology, common threats and defense in depth, encryption and hashing, identity and identity attacks, authentication and role of identity provider, federated services, and after that there will be question answer session of 5 minutes. So the total timing of this webinar is of 45 minutes, and the 5 minutes is for question answer session. So let's move. So this the first lesson is zero trust methodology. So by name itself, it is showing like trust no one, verify everything. So the basic three principles which guide and underpin how security is implemented. The three basic principles are verify explicitly, least privileged access, and assume breach. The first one is verify explicitly, means always authenticate and authorize based on the available data points, including user identity, location, device, service, or workload data, classification, and anomalies. Means whosoever entered in your particular resource or in your data center, firstly authenticate them and then authorize them based on their role, whatever they have given a role assigned by organization. After that, least privileged access means limit every user's access within just-in-time access or just enough access time, or you can also limit access on the basis of risk-based adaptive policies, and you can also limit the access on the basis of data protection to protect both data and productivity. After that, there is assume breach, means always think that if someone enters in your premises, whether it is on cloud or a physical data center or any other resource, you always think that it is a breach. So you access by network, users, devices, and application. Always use encryption to protect data and use analytics to get visibility and detect threats to improve your security. So there are 6 fundamental pillars, or you can say 6 foundational pillars that work together to provide an end-to-end security. You can see these 6 fundamental pillars, which are identities, devices, application, data, infrastructure, and network. We will study one by one all of these 6 pillars. The first one is identity. So by name itself, identity means it can be user, service, or a device. When an identity attempts to access a resource, it must be verified and with strong authentication, and then follow the least privilege access principle. Means firstly verify the explicitly, then give him a least privilege access. The first, so this was first pillar, which is identity, and the second pillar is devices, which means a device can create a large attack surface as data flows from one device to on-premises workload or cloud. So monitoring devices for health and compliance is an important aspect of security. So like a device can, so it can create a large number of tags on a surface. To stop that tag, you should always monitor a device health and compliance so that a device cannot be hacked or something like that. After that, there is application. So application is the best way that data can be consumed. So this could be including all the application being used, or sometimes it also called as shadow IT, because all the applications are not managed centrally. So this is a third pillar of our zero trust methodology model. And the fourth one is data. So data means like data should be classified, labeled, and encrypted based on its usage. Like if a data is for security, data is for production, data is for management, so it should be classified and labeled well. And after that, it should be encrypted. So security efforts are ultimately about protecting data and ensuring it remains safe when it leaves device, applications, infrastructure, and networks that the organization controls. After that, there is a second last pillar, which is infrastructures. So whether it is on-premises infrastructure or cloud-based infrastructure, it always represents a threat vector. So if you want to increase the or improve the security of infrastructure, you always configure and use the telemetry to detect the attacks and anomalies. So this also allows you to automatically block or flag risky behavior and take the protective action against hacker or someone who wants to enter in your on-premises or cloud-based infrastructure. After that, there is a last and important pillar, which is network. So in this, so network should be segmented, including deeper in network micro-segmentation. So it also provides real-time threat protection, end-to-end encryption, and monitoring and analytics should be employed. So this was the 6-pillar zero trust methodology. So moving to next. So this is a shared responsibility model. Shared responsibility model identifies which security tasks are handled by the cloud provider and which security tasks are handled by customer or a cloud customer. So the shared responsibility model varies based on the workload which is hosted. So it can be software as a service, platform as a service, infrastructure as a service, or on-premises data center. So this model makes responsibilities clear. So when organization move data to cloud, some responsibilities transfer to the cloud provider and some transfer to the customer's organization. So the following diagram, this diagram illustrates the area of responsibility between the customer and the cloud provider according to where data is held. So the first one is on-premises data center. So in on-premises data center, you have responsibility for everything from physical security to encrypting sensitive data. So all the responsibilities are taken care by organization. After that, when it comes to infrastructure as a service, all the cloud services, infrastructure as a service require the most management by the customer. Means most of the responsibilities are taken care by customer. So if you are using cloud providers computing infrastructure, the cloud customer is not responsible for physical components such as compute and network, and you are not also responsible of physical security of data center. However, the cloud customer still has responsibility for software components such as operating system, network control, application, and protecting data. And when we move to a platform as a service, so it provides a environment for building and testing and deploying software applications the main goal of platform as a service is to help you to create an application quickly without managing the underlying infrastructure. So in this, the cloud provider manages the hardware and operating system, and the customer is responsible for application and data, where you can see that. So the blue one is the responsibility shared by customer, and the gray one is a responsibility shared by cloud provider, which is Microsoft. After that, when we move to software as a service, so software as a service is hosted and managed by the cloud provider for the customer. So it is usually licensed through the monthly and annual subscription. So it can be Microsoft 365, Skype, and Dynamic 365. So which are the example of software as a service software. So it requires the least amount of management by customer and the most management by cloud provider. So in all these types of cloud, the cloud customer own data and identity, and you are responsible for protecting security of your data and identities and on premises resources. So after that, you can say that information and data device like mobile, PC, servers, accounts, and identity, these three responsibilities are managed by customer. Means there is no role of Microsoft or a cloud provider on these three lines of identity. Now there is another model which is defensive depth. In defensive depth model, there are like 7 layers which provides you a layered security to your data. So this these 7 layers are like physical, identity and access, parameter, network, compute, application, and then data. So the first one layer is physical, means a physical security, like a security guard or something like that at your physical data center. So this type of security, such as limiting access to data center to only a authorized person. After that, there is another layer which is identity and access. So this type of security controls, such as multi-factor authentication or condition-based access, to control the access to infrastructure and change the control. After that, there is parameter security. So this kind of security includes the DDoS protection to filter large scale attacks before they can cause a DDoS to user. After that, there is a network security, we can deploy network security groups such as network segmentation and network access control to limit the communication between the resources. After that, the layer is compute layer, which means this layer of security secures the access to virtual machine, either it is on premises or it is on cloud, by closing the certain ports. After that, the second last layer is application layer. So this layer security to ensure application are secure and free of security vulnerabilities. And after that, there is a last one which is data layer. So it includes control to manage access to business and customer data and encrypting to protect the data. After that, there are some common threats which can be security threats occur during protecting a data. So the first one is data breach. So data breach means if data is stolen, like it can include personal data. Personal data means any information related to individual user or its identity, directly or indirectly. So the next common threat can be dictionary data. So it is also a type of identity hack where attacker attempts to steal an identity by trying a large number of known passwords. So each password is automatically tested against the known user name. After that, there is another attack which is ransomware attack. So Malware is the term used to define ransomware attack. Means malware can give attacker unauthorized access, which allows them to use the system resource, lock you out of your computer, and ask for ransom. Means this type of uh, like threat is or attack is for like asking for money. Like sometimes the ransomware attack happens at your computer or your system, and then after that your hacker or attacker asks you for money for the solution. After there is a disruptive attack. In disruptive attack, like in this attack, attacker attempts to exhaust the application resource, making the application unavailable to legitimate users. So these are the common attacks which can be happen when you move to cloud. So there are some other minor attacks like coin miner, rootkits, Trojan horses, bombs, and other exploit kits. So this was all about the common identity or common threats in Azure. After that, there is a encryption and hashing. So encryption means you can encrypt your data to protect it from leaking. So there are two types of encryption. The first one is symmetric and the second one is asymmetric. In symmetric encryption, you use the same key to encrypt and decrypt the data. So encryption is a process of making data unreadable and unusable to unauthorized viewer. To use or read the encrypted data, you have to decrypt it, and to decrypt it, you have to use some secret key. So this is how we can encrypt the data. So in symmetric encryption, you use same key to encrypt and decrypt. But in asymmetric encryption, a public and private key both are used to encrypt and decrypt. For example, a public key used to encrypt the data, but the private key will be used to decrypt the encrypted data. So this is the difference between asymmetric and symmetric encryption. After that, there is a further two type of encryption, which is encryption at rest and encryption in transit. Means like if your data is at rest or stored in some physical device or it is storage account, so regardless of where it is stored, encryption of data at rest ensures that data is unreadable without the keys and secret needed to decrypt it. And encryption in transit means like if you are moving your data from one place to another over internet or by some wired connection, so it protects it from outside observer and provides a mechanism to transit data while limiting the risk of exposure. So after that, there is another security, which is hashing. So hashing is like it uses an algorithm to convert the original text to a unique fixed length hash value. So each time the same text is hashed using the same algorithm, the same hash value is produced. That hash can be used as a unique identifier of its associated data. So it is way different from encryption because it does not use any key. The hashed value is not the decrypted back to original. So basically, this type of security is used to store the passwords. So when a user enter their password, the same algorithm that created the stored hash created a hash of entered password. So this was all about encryption and hashing. After that, there is another concept which is common identity attacks. You can see that attacker attacks by a common identity attacks. So there are so many common identity attacks, one of which is password based attack. So it means like attacker have a tool so that automate the password based on your date of birth, your mobile number, your surname. So it gives you like hundreds of password according to your personal data. So what happens, attacker enters the passwords manually one by one. So sometimes it happens like he can access to your data by entering a correct password. So this is a common identity attack. One more common identity attack is phishing. In a phishing attack, means like a hacker sends you a mail that appears to come from a like reputed company or from your own organization. So this email contains a credible story such as a security breach, instructing the user to sign in and change their password. Instead of going to that legitimate website, the user is directed to the scammer's website where they enter their username and password. The hacker has now captured the user's identity and their password. Sometimes what happens, the attacker or hacker are not that much experienced. So the phishing mail they make are very badly written or they are easily identifiable. So you can easily detect that this is not a original email you received from the company. So, but sometimes what happen, like there are so many attackers who are very pro level. So if they give you a mail to phish you, so you can't identify that it is original or it is a phishing mail. After that, there is a spear phishing. Spear phishing is very different from phishing. Like it is also a variant of phishing, but in this, it is targeted one. Like they know a little bit data about particular target, like they know their name, number, or some other personal information. So the email can appear to you come from someone in your organization who is requesting information. So in this case, like you will be trusting the email because this email could contain some of your personal information. So protect these type of identity act, robust identity security and monitoring are needed. So risk detection in Azure Active Directory identity protection includes any identified suspicious action related to user account. So there are two types of user account, like first one is user risk and second one is sign-in risk. The user risk represents the probability that are given to identify your account is compromised. In sign-in risk, it represents the probability that a given authentication requested is not authorized by a identity owner. After that, there is another concept which is identity as a parameter, security parameter. Means identity is a first security parameter, like it secures the data. If you have a authorized or authenticated identity, you can enter to that particular resource. So there are mainly four pillars of identity, which are administration, authentication, authorization, and auditing. The first one is administration. So it is about the creation and management of identities for users, device, groups, and services. As an administrator, you can manage how and under what circumstances the character of identities can change, or it can be created, updated, and deleted. After that, there is another pillar which is authentication. So the authentication pillars tell the story of how much assurance for a particular identity is enough. Or in other words, you can say that how much does an IT system need to know what an identity in order to have a sufficient proof that they are really who they are, say they are. So it involves the act of challenging a party for legitimate credentials. Like they can ask you for some authentication. So after that, there is a authorization. So this pillar is about the processing the incoming identity data to determine the level of access as a authenticated person within the uh, within the data or within the data center. So authorization is something like if you are authenticated person, so what kind of data at what level you can access that data. After that, there is a auditing. So it is a pillar for tracking, like if someone some authenticated user enters a particular resource, so what time for uh, what duration of time at what time and what task he did in a particular resource, you can check that and download the report of a particular user, so you can audit that. So this was like identity as a primary security parameter. After that, there is another concept which is modern authentication and the role of identity provider. So modern authentication is an umbrella term for authentication and authorization methods between a client such as your laptop, it can be your phone server, such as a website or a application. So in the modern authentication, the main role is a identity provider. So the identity provider creates, maintains, and manages the identity information while providing authentication, authorization, and auditing services. So this is the modern authentication and role of identity provider. After that, there is a one small concept which is single sign-on. Means like in a single sign-on, it is also known as the fundamental capability of identity provider and modern authentication. With SSO, single sign-on, the users log in once and then credential is used to access the multiple application or resource. So like if you, for example, if you create a ID on Gmail, so after creating that ID, you can use the same ID at Google Photos. You can use the same ID at YouTube. You can use the same ID at Google Notes. So this is like single sign-on. So after that, there is a concept of federated service. So the federation enables the access of service across a organizational or domain boundaries by establishing a trust relationship between the respective domains identity provider. So with the federation, there is no need for a user to maintain a different username and password when accessing resources in other domains. So even you can see a simplified way to think about a federation. For example, a user has a authentication with the identity provider B. Also, if he want to access a particular website, but this website use the authentication of identity provider A, but the identity provider A trusts the identity provider B. So identity provider B trust a user. So by the trust method or by the federation, he can access to that particular website. So this is called a federation in a cloud. The real life example of this federation is like Facebook. So if you want to use Facebook, you must have an account on Gmail. You must have an account, or you have an account on Yahoo. So this is a example of federation. Means a Facebook trust Gmail or Yahoo. After that, there is another concept which is directory services and Active Directory. So Active Directory is a set of directory services developed by Microsoft as a part of Windows 2000 for on-premises domain-based network. The best known Active Directory service is Active Directory Domain Services. So it stores the information about the members of domain, including device and users, and verifies their credentials and define their access rights. A service running Active Directory Domain Services is a domain controller. You can also say DC. So Active Directory Domain Services is a central component in organization with on-premises IT infrastructure. So this domain services gives organization the ability to manage the multiple on-premises infrastructure component and system using a single identity per user. So however, the natively supports mobile devices, software as a service application, or online of business apps that require modern authentication method. So by passing the time or the growth of cloud services, like all the organization are moving from at cloud. So software as a service application, personal devices being used at work has resulted in need of modern authentication and the evolution of Active Directory based identity solution. So Microsoft provided us a service which is Azure Active Directory. So it is the next evolution of identity and access management solution by providing organization with identity as a service solution for all their apps across cloud and on premises. So this was all about Active Directory and Azure Active Directory. The another one concept is Cloud Adaptation Framework. So in Microsoft Cloud Adaptation Framework, it consists of documentation, implementation guidance, best practices, and tools designed to help the business to implement strategies needed to succeed in the cloud. So that means if a company needs to move from their data to cloud, so the cloud adaptation frameworks help them to give the requirement and all the needs by the organization. So the cloud adaptation framework has been carefully designed based on the cloud adaptation best practices from Microsoft employees, customers, and its partners. It provides a proven and consistent methodology for implementing cloud technology. So there is a life cycle of that particular cloud adaptation. The first one is strategy. In the strategy, like it defines the business justification and expect outcome of that adaptation. Means it gives you like justification that what you why you should move to cloud, and what will be the outcome when you adopt a particular cloud. After that, there is a plan. Means it gives you a actionable adoption plan to a business outcomes. After, there is a ready. So at a ready step, it prepare the cloud environment for a planned changes. After that, it adopts. Sometime it migrated and modernized the existing workload. Sometimes it innovates. Means sometimes it developed the new cloud native or hybrid solution. After that, there is a another one task which is govern. In the govern, it govern the environment and workload. After that, there is a next step which is manage. Means it manages all the operations for cloud or as well as for hybrid solution. So in today's webinar, we have learned about some security concept and methodology. We have learned like zero trust methodology. So means how the guiding principle of verify explicitly, least privileged access, and assume breach strengthen the security. So we also learned the 6 foundational elements of identity: devices, application, data, infrastructure, and network. After that, we studied the shared responsibility models, means how responsibilities are shared on the basis of software as a service, platform as a service, infrastructure as a service, and on-premises data center. So after that, we studied the common identity attacks that can happen when we move to cloud, like it can be password based, it can be phishing, it can be spear phishing, which is targeted to a particular user. After that, we discussed a defense in depth model, where there is a 7-layer security to protect your data, which includes physical identity and access, parameter, network, compute, application, and data. After that, we studied to encryption and hashing, where we can encrypt our data so that nobody can, if someone has access to data, then he cannot read that data because it's encrypted data, so it can be decrypted by a particular secret key or a password. After that, we discussed the identity as a primary security parameter, where we studied like how identity work as a main pillar of parameter. After that, we studied authentication and role of identity provider, means authentication is an umbrella for authentication and authorization method between a cloud client and such as your laptop or phone. So we also discussed the role of identity provider, so how it can administrate, audit, authenticate, and authorize the particular identity. After that, there was a single sign-on, like with single sign-on feature. If you sign on a particular site, it allows you to log into their another sites. For example, I have given you example of Gmail. If you created an account on a Gmail, you can access to their multiple sites, like you can access to Google Photos, you can access to Google Maps, you can access to YouTube, etc. After that, there was a concept of federated services. Under federated services, it is basically a trust model, like if a identity provider A trusts you, and there is a connection between identity provider A and identity provider B, then you can directly access to those resources which rely on identity provider A, because there is a trust between identity provider A and identity provider B, and identity provider fully trust on you. After that, there is a concept of Azure Active Directory and Directory Service, in which our Azure gives you the feature of Azure Active Directory, where you can create user, you can authenticate that user, which is and you can give access to that users based on their roles and responsibilities. So this was all about security, compliance, and identity fundamentals. So this was all about today's webinar. So please, if you want to see the upcoming webinars and register yourself for the webinars, just open the QR scanner code from your mobile phone and scan the given QR code. Also, you can register yourself from the given link, which is gtechlearn.com/webinar.aspx, where you can see the different webinars on different topics and you can register yourself, and there is a dates and times also provided at the given link. So thanks for attending. So we have some time left. You can ask your questions if you have any doubt. You can put questions in a chat box. So we go to our first question, which is, which type of security risk does a phishing scam pose? So the phishing scam pose a identity risk or identity attack, where attacker uses the identity, or he wants to steal the identity. So next question, please. So we got next question. The human resource organization wants to ensure that the stored employee data is encrypted. Which security mechanism would they use? So the data which is provided to human resource organization of an employee, it is at rest. So we will use encryption at rest mechanism to protect the employees' data. So next question, please. So next question is, which relationship allows federated services to gain the access to resources? So the federated services use the trust relationship. Means there are two identity provider, so they have the trust between both of them. So they use the trust relationship, which allows federated services to gain the access to particular resource. So that's all about our question answer session. So let's end the webinar here. Thank you for attending this webinar. I hope I have given the answer to all of your queries, and thank you very much.